Welcome to Creamer Media's Mining Weekly. I'm Natasha Odendahl. With me in studio is Adelaide Ruiters, CEO and founder of Adelaide Ruiters Mining and Exploration, to talk about the company's start, being a woman operating in the mining and agricultural sectors, and securing a mining right for a new phosphate operation. Can you tell me a little bit more about how your company started and why you got into this field?
In 2011, I responded to an opportunity that was presented by the government, whereby the government said that it wanted to create a more diverse presence in the mining industry in South Africa, and in particular to try and attract the attention of previously disadvantaged women, black women, to also become owners in the mining industry. And I heeded that call. And back then, when I thought about the possibility of me entering the mining industry, I thought I would apply for the easiest mineral to mine, which is sand. And I said to myself, I am going to supply sand to the construction industry. And then obviously I needed a deposit. I've identified the Western Cape. I am from the Western Cape and I wanted to go back to the Western Cape, right? So I needed to identify an economically viable sand deposit that I could pursue by applying for a prospecting right or a mining permit. And that took me to the Council for Geoscience, because I knew at the Council for Geoscience there would be records. When I arrived at the Council for Geoscience to do my research in order to try and locate a viable sand deposit, I stumbled across another type of sand deposit, or a few of them, namely phosphatic sands, which is essentially phosphates. And because of that research, I have managed to access and be granted the Zandheuvel phosphate mining right. It was granted to me about 2 weeks ago by the Department of Minerals, and it is called the Zandheuvel Phosphate Mining Project, and we are proudly the world's only woman-owned phosphate mine.
In terms of the funding, who have you got backing you now, and how did you get to that point?
Right, so my funding, I always say, that piece of paper that I got from the Council for Geoscience, you actually buy the reports, right? That was my first round of funding, because I essentially had previously drilling records. If you have to equate it in money, it's millions. I have saved millions of rands. And because of that document, I could apply to the Department of Minerals to get my prospecting right. And when I had my prospecting right, I went to the IDC. I did not know about the Anglo-Seafer Mining Fund's existence, but at the time they were the only institution in the country that would actually give funding for early stage exploration projects. And what the IDC did was they facilitated a meeting between myself and the Anglo-Seafer Mining Fund. And I'm very grateful for that, because at least, the IDC did try, because I was not ready to receive their funding at that point in time, but they did go out of their way, and I have to thank Kevin Hodges for that, to ensure that I do access the funds to enable me to do my drilling in 2016. So eventually, 3 years down the line, and that is after I had to rezone the farm in Saldanha. I had to rezone it from agriculture to prospecting, and that also takes time. Yeah. So eventually, 2016, we could go out there and do the first round of drilling, which was successful, because the drilling results essentially proved that the old drilling records, were still valid. We twinned certain boreholes, and it matched. I have also managed in 2013 to track down previous employees from Phosphate. As you do know, Phosphate is essentially the biggest, and I think at this point in time the only big phosphate mine that is operating in the country. So we don't have much phosphate expertise left in our country anymore. And I have managed to locate Mr. Jan van der Merwe and Dr. Gert van der Linde. I call him Oom Jan. He was heading up geology at Phosphate, and Dr. Gert was heading up metallurgy. And I managed to locate them, and I gave them shares in my company. I could not afford to pay them. And they have assisted me to eventually define the proper prospecting program so that we could end up with the proper results. So up until today, I'm working with them, and I'm very grateful that they have also done some skills transfer to myself and the team working with me, because I think South Africa needs to re-establish a phosphate competency so that we can safeguard our food security. So the funding that I have received from Anglo-Sifa Mining Fund that enabled me to prove the resource has unlocked the doors at the IDC. After the 2016 round of funding, I had to do a pre-feasibility metallurgical test work, and we did a laboratory scale pilot plant test work, and it basically proved that we had a mineral that can be beneficiated economically. And I then applied to the Industrial Development Corporation to enable me to complete a bankable feasibility study, as well as 2 rounds of continuous pilot plant testing. And the technology is based on the old, tried and tested direct froth flotation technology used at Phosphate. The first round we did with the conventional direct froth flotation technology, and the second round we did with a modified, more environmentally friendlier version of that same old technology called the EMOFLOT G-Cell. It has a smaller footprint, and it uses less energy. It's environmentally friendlier, and that is the technology we decided to complete the bankable feasibility study on. So the IDC, they're funding me up until today to complete the bankable feasibility study. We decided to substitute the traditional chemical that you would use during your direct froth flotation process with a canola oil derivative. I'm very excited about that because we will be sourcing our canola oil byproduct from the farmers in the Southern Cape. So that will also lead to more jobs being created by them. So the product that will be produced by the Zandheuvel phosphate mine will be a green organic phosphate that can be used in an organic environment. However, it is good enough to be used in a commercial chemical environment where you want to do your large-scale farming practices. I'm also very much excited because our phosphate rock, we had it tested. We did pre-feasibility test work in Europe to determine whether we can indeed produce a phosphoric acid from our 28% P2O5. We had it tested, and the results came back positively. And maybe in nearby future, we will possibly blend with other phosphate sources in the country. We have also blended during our trials with the Phosphore rock, and it did produce a very good phosphoric acid.
I'm just looking to your product application. I mean, this could prove to be quite interesting, especially for the agricultural space. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you're aiming to do with your product?
Yes. The phosphate rock we will be mining at Zandheuvel is a sedimentary phosphate rock, and it is different to the phosphate rock being mined at Phosphore. Phoscore's phosphate rock is an igneous phosphate rock, and what that means is that if you mine the rock and you beneficiate it to a concentrate and you want to apply that concentrate to the crop or to a plant, the plant will not be able to absorb the phosphorus. It is not citric acid soluble. In order for an igneous phosphate rock to become citric acid soluble, you have to produce a phosphoric acid, and that is why they have the plant in Richards Bay. With my type of phosphate rock, it is a sedimentary phosphate rock. It's a phosphatic sand. And it is already citric acid soluble when you do mine the phosphate rock. So if you mine the rock and you want to apply it to the plant will be able to absorb the phosphorus. However, through beneficiation, we are increasing the phosphate content to 28.7% P2O5. And we can proudly say that we have got a very high citric acid solubility. We do not need to produce a phosphoric acid before the plant can absorb the phosphorus. And we also decided end of last year as a company that you have to, if you want to market your product in the agriculture space, the first thing the farmer will ask you, will it work? you know. The farmer's highest input cost is fertilizers and diesel. And he will not risk his crop by using a fertilizer, and there's no statistics on the efficiency of that product in the agriculture space. So we employed an agronomist, and we decided to apply the concentrate in a agriculture setup, and we planted soybeans, because soybeans is a very important plant protein source, you know, for humanity. And I was very nervous, I have to admit. You know, if the product was not successful during the agriculture trial, then we had to apply it in a industrial, you know, application. However, the bankable feasibility study is focused on the use of the phosphate concentrate for agriculture, in particular organic agriculture. However, we decided to do the trials to try and prove its efficiency in a organic agriculture space as well as a chemical fertilizer space. Many a times I have been asked the question, your phosphate rock is below 30% P2O5, it will not work. And now I have proven through the soybean crop trials, we have got scientific data that shows the efficiency of the phosphates in both a organic setup and a chemicals or commercial application. So I am hoping through the product that we will be producing at our mining site, which is in Saldanha Bay, by the way, 5 kilometers from the harbour, and we will be pumping the concentrate to the harbour. From there, you know, it will be spread through trucks maybe for the farmers inland, and we will also be able to export. We have got a set of data that we can prove to the farmer that, you know, there is an option for them. 70% of our phosphates are being imported at the moment, and it is not necessary. Our country has been blessed with abundant phosphates in the northern part of our country and in the southern part of our country. We should be exploiting our own phosphorus for the benefit of our people. You know, if we can produce bulk of our fertilizers, it can possibly lead to cheaper food prices.
Just looking to the future, once you've established this mine, once you've re-established an industry, what would be your next steps? What would you do next?
We need to establish a phosphate producers association. I believe that the holders of the phosphate prospecting rights in this country or mining rights in this country, we must work together, not from a competition or anti-competitive perspective. It's a commodity that is, it's a strategic commodity. It has got to do with our food security. So the next step for me, now that I am a holder of a mining right, is to collaborate with the other phosphate producers in the country so that we can form a phosphate producers association, you know. You do have such associations, industrial associations in the country, and through that we have to start re-establishing the phosphate competency in our country. Because if we're not going to do that, you know, we're going to end up looking at a phosphate deposit and not interpret it in the appropriate manner. You know, we need to build our phosphate competency for our country so that we can look after our people's food security needs.
That was Adelaide Ruiters discussing the history of ARME, the challenges of operating a woman-owned mining company, and the company's new mining right.